Back on golf today, the PGA Tour has turned down a bid by Endeavor to form a strategic partnership with the circuit, according to Endeavor's chief operating officer. Endeavor, which owns WWE, the UFC, and various sports agencies, including IMG, publicly expressed interest in a partnership with the tour, and it's not clear if the tour's ongoing negotiations with Saudi Arabia's public investment fund prompted the circuit to turn down the offer. Former tour player and policy board member Joe Ogilvie now manages money for Wallace Capital Management and sent an open letter to membership of the tour on October 24th, which read in part, "There's never been a better time to be a PGA Tour member. Getting the governance right today will ensure the stars of tomorrow will feel the same way. Earning the right to call yourself a PGA Tour member is an incredible accomplishment and something that only about 0.0003% of the world's golfers have earned." And we're joined now by PGA Tour winner Joe Ogilvie. Joe, you've always been a keen observer of the game inside the ropes and outside the ropes. What prompted you to write this letter?
Yeah, I think ever since Jay made the announcement on June 6th, you kind of wanted to, as a player and a former player, you kind of wanted to really understand what the current state of play is a little bit more than the communications inside of Ponte Vedra have given. And I've talked to a lot of players, current and past, and they've asked my questions. They asked what I thought, and I figured I might as well put pen to paper and just, give them my thoughts. And given where we are, I mean, it's such a unique time. I mean, there's not a whole lot of parallels to this. When you think about it, I mean, we have a 501c6 that the players, whether you're a veteran member or the 183 odd voting members of the PGA Tour, are the sole members of. And when you go from a for-profit to from a not-for-profit and then possibly a for-profit, it's an incredibly complicated transaction. And just wanted to make sure and put my voice to whatever that means into where the players can kind of, I guess, understand it in plain English. Because unless you really think about the ownership and how it's set up, or the lack there of an ownership, it's kind of hard to get your arms around. And so I tried the best I could to explain it in plain English. And hopefully it helps a few guys.
You said you talked to a lot of players in recent months, Joe. Have you talked to Jay Monahan, the executives of the tour, and shared the same concerns with them? And what has the reaction been?
I haven't talked to Jay. I've certainly talked to a couple of people in his staff. And, I think some of the guys, even, fairly high up, they've been a little bit confused as well, certainly on the messaging and a little bit in the dark. And this is, I don't fault anyone for this. This is an incredibly complicated subject, but it's, I think communication, and the more you communicate to the membership, I mean, we're not splitting the atom here. We're trying to get this right from a professional golf standpoint. And it's not just the PGA Tour. I mean, the DP World Tour is involved. Certainly Live's involved, the PIF's involved, and then now we have other suitors. And I think it's just, I mean, look, from the governance standpoint, when you go from the C6, which you have independent directors and you have player directors, and then you introduce a for-profit aspect, where does the governance from a PGA Tour member, where does it end and where does it begin? In that new model, if you go to that new model. And it's just incredibly important to get right on the front end, because when you do a deal with private equity, you don't necessarily get a do-over, and you don't get to say, well, this is how we intended this to operate, and we don't have enough representation on the board. We're going to go ahead and you should give us more board seats. That just doesn't work like that. So it's just important to really, really get it right on the front end. And I think, if I was going to give Jay advice, I'd just say more communication is better than less at this point. And there's been a lack of a communication. I think at the beginning it was mishandled, and then it hasn't been terrifically handled since.
Joe, to that point in the letter, you say entering a partnership is like entering a marriage. It's not about just checking in. All of a sudden, your needs and their needs have to be aligned. Did you get the sense that the players don't even really realize what this partnership might entail at the beginning?
Well, I think it's difficult to. I mean, there hasn't been a lot of communication, right? I mean, there hasn't, and they haven't gotten to a deal. So we don't know. It'd be unfair to say the players don't know what's going on. But I mean, I think some players, it's not intuitive to figure out, okay, they're going to give me $2 billion or $1 billion, whatever the number is. What does that actually mean to me? And if they give you $1 billion, they have to value the corporation at something. And then they're going to want an ownership stake in that. And explaining what that ownership stake means and the rights that billion will get you from a governance standpoint, from a board seat standpoint, and expectation standpoint. And, you know, if it's a typical private equity deal, which I really don't think, you're not going to have a fund invest in the PGA Tour that has to generate a return within a few years. I mean, that just doesn't work. So it's going to need to be some type of permanent capital if and when this actually gets done. But they're going to want a return. And what does that mean? And I think that's the basis of the letter.
In your letter, Joe, that you mentioned the various assets that the PGA Tour has and their potential valuations. And there's one section where you give the example, for instance, of the old Honda Classic in Palm Beach Gardens that could be potentially valued at $100 million. Or you talk about, for instance, the President's Cup or the Players have a potential value of $1.5 billion. I'm curious at what point did you arrive at these valuations of what you think the Tour's assets actually are worth potentially to potential investors?
Well, I think it's, you know, there's a little bit of math and there's a little bit of magic to it, right? I mean, certainly the President's Cup and the Players Championship. I mean, those are trophy assets, right? Those are, and you would have to separate them, and it'd be very complicated. But if you think about the President's Cup, you have, you have global TV rights. Now we put that in a television package, in its package, so it makes all the other tournaments worth a little bit more. So you would have to separate it, but it would be somewhat complicated. But I mean, in Chicago, when the President's Cup goes there, I mean, I would assume that they'll do somewhere around the $80 million mark on site. And, you know, let's call the margins 45%. So you get around $35 to $40 million on site in profit. And then you go to the US television rights and the international television rights. And what are those worth? Well, I don't know. Those are worth a lot of money. So you put a valuation on that, and then you say, okay, well, what's it worth if let's break them up from, like, the Ryder Cup's broken up. You've got the European side and you've got the US side. Well, if I run Richemont. I'm Johan Rupert, who is a South African and, you know, sponsors the Dunhill and is just a big fan of golf. He also owns luxury brands. That President's Cup is a luxury brand. And if I'm an international suitor, that might be worth a lot of money to me. I could put it in different countries. I'm the richest guy in Korea. I'm the richest guy in Australia, richest guy in South Africa. I'm running the PIF. Owning that asset on the international side, by the way, the international captains might like it out of the PGA Tour hands. That might be interesting to someone. And I think it'd be interesting to the tune of, you know, $750 million on just the international side. Honda Classic, on the other hand, you just do it. You know, there's a value to it. I think Honda Classic, if it's run really, really well, I think they could do $20 million top line. I think they could probably make somewhere in the $7.5 to $8 million range on site. Put a value on top of that. I think there's probably a ego value as well, and you get the $100 million pretty easy.
Joe, speaking of media,
25 tournaments.
Well,
you have 25 tournaments, so that's, you know.
Well, speaking of media rights, which you bring up, that's one reason why we're sitting here today is Phil Mickelson's contention about who controls those media rights, saying he thought that the tour controlled too much. I'm curious your thoughts on Phil Mickelson and where we sit to this day. Some view him as a Benedict Arnold. Some view him as a hero in terms of the money that's now going to the PGA Tour players. How do you view his opinions on this whole matter of who controls media rights and who controls the dollars?
Well, I mean, look, I have enjoyed being around Phil when I played. I mean, there is no better person with the gift of gab. Now he's certainly I haven't agreed with the rhetoric on leaving the PGA Tour, but take Phil out of it. I think that what competition has done. It has enabled the PGA Tour to relook at their business model and relook at some of the things that they've done. And, from a player's perspective and from a, now a finance guy's perspective, I mean, what competition does is it gives you a chance to sharpen the pencil a little bit and look at your business and say, okay, are we running this right? Are we a little bloated? Is there a better way that we could be running this business? And, I think that's what LIV and that's what the PIF has done in their investment is caused the PGA Tour to kind of to relook at this thing. And I mean, I think going to a calendar year schedule has been a very, very good thing for the guys. I mean, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be incredibly hard to keep your card. I can now tell you everybody's schedule if you tell me where they finished on the FedEx Cup points last year, I will tell you how many tournaments they're going to play and what their schedule is. It's never happened before. It's not exactly true for the top 50, but outside of the top 50, I can tell you their schedule next year. So you're going to have more guys playing more often. I think that, as far as the media rights go, I think that's up for debate. And I think the tour would definitely loosen that up. And again, competition created that.
Do you think the deal with the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia will happen? And do you think it should happen?
I think that it would be very difficult to happen as contemplated on June 6th. I mean, Jay saying that evening that they had an opportunity to take a competitor off the board and they took it. And then Mohammed bin Salman, His Royal Highness, said to Brett Baer that we will have no competition. The Justice Department tends to not like those statements. So I think if a deal does happen, I think it would probably happen on the international side. And you look at assets the PGA Tour has that maybe we're not the best stewards of those assets. Maybe the DP World Tour, that was done that was done to kind of form a better partnership with the DP World Tour. I don't know. Maybe that's an asset. Maybe the international side of the President's Cup is an asset that maybe we're not the best owners of. I say we in terms of the PGA Tour. But I don't know. I think it's hard. It would be hard for the PIF to be the only investor if you're talking about the PGA Tour, just because I think the antitrust it'd be pretty tough.
In your letter, you have the line, Joe, culture and values matter. Are the values and culture of golf and the PGA Tour aligned with the government of Saudi Arabia?
I don't know. I mean, I've certainly read, and watched what you've said, Eamon, and certainly what Brandel has said. I'm a little more. I'm a little more open-minded. I mean, I think we live in a global world, and money is very fungible. I mean, Saudi Arabia is a market that I would say something like 70% of our, maybe more, of our sponsors have business in. And so it's very difficult when you start playing the moral card. And when I say values and everything else, I mean, I think that even if you did a small piece with a PIF, I mean, there's a carrot and a stick, and I think you've got to give you can't pigeonhole a society forever. And I think that's just as dangerous as excluding. So I don't know. It's hard. I certainly understand every single person's argument to, from, and every which way, but I don't know. I'm a little softer on that, but I think it does matter who you choose as a partner. And I think that understanding their intentions going in, understanding what they want out of it, from an economic standpoint, from a reputational standpoint, and everything else is very, very important. And it's something you certainly have to, and everything is, I mean, look, every little thing is weighed, right? I mean, if you want to make sure who your partners are, and you want to understand to the best of your ability what their motivations are. And so, yeah, I don't know if anything will ever happen, but that's kind of my stance on it.
Joe, because of how this framework agreement was announced in darkness, the players not abreast of the negotiations, the PGA Tour's previous stance, Jay Monahan's previous stance of never having to apologize about being a member on the PGA Tour, to where we sit today. What is the road like for Jay to earn back the trust, and I mean the complete trust, of the PGA Tour membership?
Well, he's not going to. I mean, he's just not going to. Now he can do the best. He can stay in that role, but he's not going. That's permanently impaired, I think. But he can stay. He can stay in that role, and he can do the best of his abilities. And I mean, it's just, I think it's naive to think that he's going to have the same trust as he previously earned. And I don't think that's that controversial of a statement, but you can have, I mean, you can run the organization without the players' trust. It becomes a little bit harder. And they may not help you out as much as possible, but I mean, you just have to run it to the best of the ability and always put them first. I mean, it wasn't a fatal blow, but it was handled extremely poorly.
Are you interested in being the commissioner of the PGA Tour, Joe?
No. I'm very happy at Wallace Capital. I'm happy at Wallace Capital. We have a great firm, and but I will say this, I am interested in helping the players out any way they see fit. And part of that letter was to get them to understand, like, they control the PGA Tour. I mean, they are the natural owners of this thing if it ever becomes a for-profit organization. And as owners, Jay and Ponte Vedra Beach, they work for them. And it's important that they understand that. I think that over the years, I think it's gotten to the point where sometimes the people running this organization views the players as nice to have, and they're important to have, but they're interchangeable. Certainly not Tiger Woods, and certainly not some of the top guys, but the vast majority of them are interchangeable, and that's actually not that far off. But at the same time, management, they work for the players, and I think that's been lost. And I think June 6th, if it did anything, it highlighted that. And regardless if you say it was just we just rolled it out poorly, but the fact of the matter is, it'd be like, I'm a financial advisor now, and I advise people. Ask me all the time on, can I afford this house? Can I afford, it'd be like if I was a financial advisor to you, Damon, and said, and you're asking me all these questions, and I just sold your house without you and your wife knowing. That's kind of what this was. And, I just don't know how you're not going to regain trust. Or you might, but it's going to take a really, really, really long time. It's not going to take months. It's not going to take years. It's going to take a decade.
Well, when you say that it's going to be tough to regain trust, that Jay Monahan probably won't regain trust, and you've talked about governance issues and how the ownership really belongs to the players here, that would seem to suggest you're advocating that a player or a former player ought to be the commissioner. And the question is, I guess, is a former player or a current player or you qualified to run a multi-billion-dollar business?
Well, I think Dean Beeman did it just fine.
But the tour was kind of like a corner shop back in that era versus the Walmart that it is today.
Yeah, but it's still at the heart of it. What you're trying to do is you're trying to give a platform for the best golfers in the world to showcase their skills. I mean, at the heart of it, that's the simplicity of the business. Now you have digital rights and you have international rights and you have what do you have? You got 32 events, 28 of which, or maybe it's 29 of which you control. You don't control the 4 majors. I don't know if we really control the Scottish Open or not. Probably influenced, but it's really not. It's a complex, but it's a relatively simple business at heart. There's plenty of private equity guys that are looking at this business. I mean, those guys could run it, or they have people at the hand that could run this business. I mean, anyone that's run F1 or the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball could come into the PGA Tour and they could run the business. This is not this isn't real complicated. The personalities are, but as far as the business goes and the business of sports, it's a very, very, very good business, and it could be run. And by the way, Jay's up until this point, he's done a terrific job, and I think that he's still in the position, and I think he'll more than likely be there for the next couple of years.
Is the game still attractive enough? The PGA Tour, coming off the greatest needle mover of all time in Tiger, to this young crop of stars, to attract enough private equity interest to potentially, rival the dollars that the PIF is throwing out in negotiations?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's incredibly attractive. It's incredibly attractive. There's only so many instances where you get a chance to, or the doors even open to participate at the league level in a sport from an investment standpoint. I mean, think about it. I mean, up until the last couple of years, private equity wasn't even allowed into some of the NFL and the NBA, and now that's kind of open. I mean, Major League Baseball now has their first publicly the Atlanta Braves is publicly owned. Liberty Media controlled that. Liberty Media also owns F1. I'm sure they're involved in this PGA Tour discussion. So it's not going to be hard to raise, if you wanted to, $2, $3, $4 billion. This is not a hard thing. The question is, who do you want as your investor? That's a hard thing, and then you got to figure out the rights and the governance and everything else. But as far as the investment goes, it's a few $1 billion is not that much money.
The question a lot of fans will ask, Joe, is does the tour need the money? What changed now, other than the irrational actor of Liv telling players that they're worth more than the market ever told them they were worth before? Does the tour actually need the investment fundamentally?
I don't know if it does or not. I mean, I think the tour, in part of this, when Ron Price was in front of the Senate panel and he said our very existence was in doubt. I mean, I kind of, that kind of stopped me in my tracks, because I was always under the impression, looking at the balance sheet, that we were fine, fully sponsored. I mean, they didn't even offer Dell or Dell Technologies to re-up at the match play because things were going so well. And so I just assumed everything was, hunky dory. That comment kind of threw me for a loop, and maybe he would like a mulligan on that. But I think the PGA Tour has plenty of resources. Do they need to do a deal? Probably not. I mean, I think that or at least in the short term, I think the 501c6 has served a purpose. Do I think if we went to a for-profit model, it gives you the ability to do other things? I think that would probably help in the long term. I think you always have to look at that. I mean, Major League Baseball, NFL, they gave away their 501c6 or terminated it maybe 10 years ago. So it gives you a little bit more optionality. I think that, like I said, I think that whenever you look at your assets, you ask the question, are we the best stewards of some of those assets? And I think there's a debate on that, and you can sell those and you still maintain control of the whole tour. And then, maybe the deal is so good with some of these, and I don't know the economics of any of the suitors, but maybe the deal is so good that it makes total sense. I mean, if someone valued the tour at $20 billion, I would say, yeah, let's take the money. So it all comes down to price. But PGA Tour is a trophy asset. I mean, it is an incredibly valuable asset, and that they will have plenty of suitors. Now the question is, and if you're the players, you got to ask, if someone's going to give you $1 billion or $2 billion, what's the plan for that money? And that plan for that money and that capital allocation decision, because that's what it is, right? You give $2 billion in cash. How are you going to go spend it? Are you going to spend it in players' salaries? You're going to spend it in, the makeup of John Rahm turned down $200 million. We're gonna make him whole. I don't know if that's a debate. What whole means, right? I mean, if you look at the LIV guys, they pretty much lost all their sponsors. So I don't know what John Rahm's making off the golf course, but there's probably some type of formula there. I have no idea. I'm not in those discussions, but I don't know. I think that there's a lot of questions that you can ask as a player, but I would definitely demand, and I'd want to plan. And I'm sure they're doing PGA Tour. There's a lot of smart guys, including Jay Monahan, that are there, and they know they have to show a good plan, and they know they have to kind of make up for, I guess a year of being less than perfect. And so I'm relatively confident that they'll come up with something kind of interesting.
Joe, not sure you plan on spending your lunch hour with us. We are highly appreciative of your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.